Hello and welcome to Leicester Fan TV for this early in the day fan zone type show. I mean, as you can see from the title, and as we all know, every Leicester fan and pretty much every fan of the Premier League now knows Leicester City have been relegated to the Championship after yesterday's results didn't go in our favour. We're not really going to talk about yesterday's results too much on this show. This is more just about a few different talking points from the club. What's happened, what's led us here, and what might happen going forwards. So yeah, please get your comments in. It's much appreciated. We're going to have a few people on having a chat with us as well, and we're going to be going through a few things, like I said. Rennie is here. Hi, Rennie, mate. Thanks for joining. Hayden Whittle's here. Just got back off holiday. Oh, Tom's upside down. There he is. Just got back off holiday to find out we're relegated. Tom, mate, I just obviously introed the show there and said, everyone knows now, you've got to be living under a rock if you haven't seen it. But Leicester City are now in the Championship. What are your, what's your initial reaction to that?
Do you know what? I'm gutted, but I think we've seen it coming for a long time now. I think we've all prepared ourselves that this could possibly happen this season. I think we prepared ourselves more than the board and the owners prepared themselves that this was going to happen. I think the fans could have seen this 18 months ago that we were in dire straits without backing the team or backing the manager at the time and putting new blood into that squad. And sadly, if you don't invest in the players, you get left behind in the Premier League. And look, as much as that probably starting 11 were good enough to be in the top 10, that squad of players just wasn't good enough. And you can go through all the videos from Leicester Fan TV back to the Southampton game, after the Southampton game, when I did my amazing rant and basically said that this squad of players aren't good enough to stay in the Premier League and that we'd get relegated. That was in September I said that. We're now in May and we got relegated. And that's not me just trying to say, hey, look, I got it right. It's me saying I knew then we were in trouble with the squad of players that we had, that there wasn't enough quality to play 38 games with injury hit squad that we'd be able to cope with the season. It's disappointing, but I suppose me, Phil and Jamie had seen a lot more of these relegations than sadly you boys have seen over the years, Locks, and you now have tasted this for the first time. It is not a nice taste. And sadly, Henry, my boy, sat there in the ground and looked at me and he was going nuts when Barnes scored. He just looked at me and went, why aren't you celebrating, Dad? I went, it's not over till the 90th minute and it ain't over until we know that Everton have drawn or lost. And I think we knew as soon as Everton had scored that was D-Day. So, look, it's hard to take this morning, but now is the big rebuild, and it is a rebuild this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Ross, mate, thanks for... Sorry, before I go to Ross, actually, can we just say, I think this is the first time in a long time Ant and Deck have been on screen together, so that's great to see. There's the silver lining, I suppose. Ross was here, but he's just disappeared. Look, we've got Jono as well, which we'll get on in a minute. I want to start really with one of the talking points, Tom, which is a little bit of news that came out late last night or this morning about these the financial state of the club. Obviously, we all know that we're not in a good place, especially now with going down. But one thing that came out was parachute payments, which everyone talks about when there's a relegation, and they will be used to repay the quarterly interest of the loan, which is £19 million. Obviously, the loan was set against TV money, Premier League TV money, which will obviously that'll be heavily reduced now as a cost of relegation. So, do you think this kind of just sums up as well, like the complacency of the club? Getting out such a big loan against Premier League TV money, we're not going to be able to pay it. We're not going to be able to use the Premier League money anymore to pay that off. We're going to have to use the parachute payments that are there to support us.
Well, I got called all the names under the sun when I said what a bad move by the football club that was to take money out against TV money from Premier League rights, considering the mess we were in. No, the club know what they're doing. The club know what they're doing. So the club plan was all in one was take the money out. Then if we get relegated, use the parachute payment to pay some of the interest back. That's ludicrous, and that's club suicide in my view. That the club think that's the best way to run. That we'll take a massive loan out against TV money that we're not guaranteed to get when we were already in the relegation zone. Let's get bled. We were already in the relegation fight at the time. The club truly believed that we weren't going to get out. Well, truly believed we were going to get out the mess about the signs of it. To me, that's a hell of a gamble, and it hasn't paid off. And now we're in a mess even more because where's this money coming from for the rebuild in the summer? What players are we going to be able to sign if we haven't got no money to do a signature in the last 2 years? Where's Top going to find, probably X amount of 20 odd million this squad's going to need, 30 million this squad's going to need to rebuild, unless he's now heart set that he will sell players for big money and then invest that back into the club. But you didn't do that with the Fofana money when we needed it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they rebuild the structure. And I think it's a really, really poor move from the football club. And the name on the screen there is the first one that needs to go out the door. They talked about this inquest to what's gone wrong between Rudkin and Whelan. Sorry, Sudan Whelan and John Rudkin need to be the one not making the inquest. It should be someone outside the football club come in and do the inquest, not the two people who had led the club into disaster. And Top needs to put his hands up and say he made mistakes along the way. But those two are the main two. I'd get out the door as quick as we can. They've both been here too long, and Rudkin for sure has been in too long. He's dead wood.
Yeah, we're gonna. I was just gonna say, mate, I agree with everything you've said. We're gonna come on to Rudkin in a few moments. Ross, just obviously thanks for clicking in. Much appreciated. Now, we were just speaking there about the financial state of the club. Are you worried now even more? With obviously the loan repayments, but main thing really getting relegated. There is not the same money in the Championship as there is in the Premier League.
Absolutely not. Not just that. The amount of teams that are in that Championship go for them teams. Real, the massive clubs that be in the top three. Good bird singing there. Is that Tom there? Good bird singing.
You're cutting out a little bit, Ross. I can't hear you very clearly, mate.
Is that better?
Maybe. Go on.
Basically, if we're going to sell Maddison, let's do what we did with Maguire. Take every penny that they've got to sell him. Sell Maddison.
Well, let's. Yeah. I was just going to say, let's get Jono and Reedy in. I'll start with Jono. Look, Jono. Ross has just mentioned there about getting every penny out of the Maddison deal when he does eventually leave, but we're not going to be able to do that, are we? We're in the Championship. We're going to get a massively cut price.
Yeah, like if we stayed in the Premier League, we could have got easily 60 million, but you're looking at 30 million, 40 million at a push for him now, and he's our biggest outlet. It's not like Tielemans going on a free. That's a massive player who we're not going to get a cent for. Castagna and Ricardo will go. We'll get around 15 million each, 20 million each for them. You shaking your head, Tom?
I don't see anyone coming in for Ricardo, mate. His injury nightmare. He's got no record of hitting enough games in a row to warrant a move, and I don't see anyone coming in for him. Even a bottom half team coming in and risking it, mate.
What about Castagna?
I could see Castagna possibly moving on. Yeah, I don't see Ricardo going, and I don't see James Justin moving that quickly either, mate. A lot of people talk about James Justin going out the door. I don't see it happening. And again, his injury record in the last 3 years will hamper a move to a big club because clubs aren't going to give him a massive contract in case he gets a long-term injury. Same with Ricardo. With massive mistake in Ricardo, a 4-year deal after he'd come back from that injury. I've said it for a long time. We've given contracts out to players who didn't deserve a contract. Ricardo probably did in some ways, but not the length he got because of the injury record he had.
And you're looking at, lots on about the financial situation. Yes, we took the loans for the TV rights, but then you're talking about awful contract decisions. Like you give Bertrand, a 31-year-old, a massive contract with huge wages per week. Then he played 4 games for us in 2 seasons. And Vestergaard, who has been one of the worst signings in recent history, It's on ridiculous amounts of money as well. That, every week we're losing at least 90k a week on those two players who don't play. Again, another bad deals because all that money is being spent, and then they're not the quality that we lost. We lost Fofana. Fast is a decent player, but nowhere near Fofana level. And we lost all these players, but we didn't get anywhere near the quality we need to keep up.
Yeah, I want to quickly go to Reedy. Obviously, we spoke there just about Maddison. A cut price for Maddison, 30 to 40 million now, Reedy. What about Barnes? I mean, do you expect him to go? And if so, how much are we going to be able to recoup for him? Because I saw Gabby Bonglahor. I mean, I'm not a big fan of his, but he was saying 25 million. What are you thinking on that?
If I'm totally honest, I think it's about right. I don't see him going for more than that, if I'm totally honest. Now we're in the Championship. Yes, his stats will show, but for me, he's meant to be in his prime right now, and I just don't think he is. So for me, 25, 30 million is probably the most we'll get for him. And like it's going to be the same for a lot of players now. We're not going to get this 60, 70, 80 million pound we were thinking for like some Maddison or even Yuri at like 30 or 40. Obviously now he's going on a free. There's so many players going on a free which we could have made money out of. But yeah, Barnes for me, maximum 30 if that.
Yeah. Tom, next thing I want to talk about really is, again, more news that came out last night. It's going to be constant now for, the next week, you'd imagine. Johnny Evans spoke to, I don't know who it was, who he was speaking to when he said it, but the players were saying goodbye to each other in the changing rooms after the game. Obviously, not every player will leave, but, we're expecting at least, 5, 6, 7 to be leaving. What are your thoughts on that, the goodbyes in the dressing room after such a, heartbreaking day?
I can't imagine that was the easy thing to do between the players. They would have been devastated on the fact that they've gone down. But obviously, that's the last time most of the players will see each other. The ones like, if you look at Johnny Evans out of contract now, that's Johnny done. Unless the club offer him a new one, I don't see the value of money for offering Johnny Evans a new contract long term now. I think for me, you need some fresh blood in there. And I think we've got the fresh blood. Harry Souttar is perfect for the Championship. He's played enough games in there to fill the Johnny Evans role with me without Faz at the back. As you say, you're going to lose 7 players possibly. I don't think there'll be a mass exodus as we're talking about. I think there'll be a lot more. Don't think there'll be a lot of players that we expected to leave. I think you've got the ones out of contract definitely gone. Maddison and Barnes will definitely go. I also think the club will be realistic and say if we want to get back up, we've got to keep players to get back out of this league. I'd see Daka, but Daka won't be going, and Daka in the Championship will be scary for any defence because there'll be a lot more spacing behind for Daka to get into. Nacho, 1 year left. I don't see the club cutting the ties with that. I think the club will probably try and hold on to him and see if we can get out of the league. And then if he goes, he goes. Sumari won't go anywhere. He'll be another one for the Championship. He's good enough to play in the Championship. Then you've got to build it around those players. You've got a goalkeeper who's good enough for the Championship. You proved that with Preston and Daniel Everson. So look, there's obviously going to be goodbyes. It's sad to hear that the players have to do it after a relegation, but I'm not unexpected to hear that. And Johnny would be saying that in jest that it is goodbye because he's not going to see them possibly again. So I'm not reading too much into that scenario from what he was saying.
You think as well before you say Locks, it's the fact that a lot of the players that we know were going to go, even if we did stay up most likely, are the ones that are going to go. The ones that are staying, they're all the ones that we knew would be left with after the season either way. I think, obviously, Mendy maybe got given a new contract because obviously he was out of contract, but I don't know if I could see that, but it's just a hard one because, like I say, Yuri Tillemans we knew was going, Maddison we knew was going, Barnes with his stats this season, maybe he would have gone even if he did stay up, I'm not sure, but we're still left with a lot of the Premier League side that are good enough for the Prem, so when we go down into the Championship, on paper, and I know it's only on paper, we should be good enough to try and at least challenge again next season.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I want to speak about really is this comment here, Vardy. I mean, there's a lot of talk. Obviously, he's on high wages. I'm guessing they'll be cut. And even if it's not in his contract, would you expect someone like Jamie Vardy maybe to just take a pay cut and stay at Leicester? Or do you think, Tom, that we might actually look at moving him on this summer? Do you think that is a possibility?
No, I think Vards will be here next year. I think he'll do everything possible to get his football club back to the Premier League. You see out of all the players, him, Nacho, how much it hurt to see this club go down.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that if Vardy has to take a pay cut to stay, then he'll take the pay cut to stay just to get this club back up. He will not want to finish on such a low. A lot of people saying, oh, he should retire, he should do this. Vardy will be all right in the Championship. Vardy can do a job in the Championship for me. We saw that this season at times. Give him a run of games, he starts to get back to the look of Vardy we can see. We saw it against Leeds, the goal, the finish. You know, there's certain things you know what Vardy can do. And I think in the Championship, defence will be terrified to go up against Vardy, because if you've got Vardy and Nacho on the pitch, Vardy, Nacho and Dak on the pitch at any point, teams aren't going to be sitting there going, oh, great, you know, it's them three. You know, for me, Vardy stays, he takes a pay cut if he has to take a pay cut. I think you've got to look at it realistically. A lot of people say about pay cuts and stuff. You've got to look at the wages we're getting off that bill, by the way. You're going to lose Tillemans, who's on not nearly 100k a week. You're going to lose Maddison, who's 90k a week. Well, that's 190k a week we're not paying out as a football club. That's probably three players' wages in the Championship. So, in theory, if players having to take a wage cut, they might not have to do that. Obviously, Suter and Christensen both signed contracts with pay cuts in theirs. But to say that the club will not have the revenue to pay Vardy's wages, well, they probably will do because of losing some of these players. Daniel Amati going 45k a week, Mendy going 35, 40k a week. There's players that's probably, you know, another two players you lose, but you probably get three players for some of the wages they're on in the Championship. But it's all about buying quality. We look at Burnley. If you look at Burnley, they had a bit of a tidy up. They got rid of some of the dead wood. They got rid of some of the players that weren't going to feature. And he brought in young, exciting talent that he knew were in Belgium and where Man City, players that he knew. Whoever comes in, whoever the manager is as well, that's the biggest question. This isn't about just VAR. This is about who's the manager going into next season, because that's going to be the biggest question now before we can do anything on signings.
Here's a question.
Go on. Yeah. Go on, Ross.
Here's a question. Now, I asked my mate earlier. Third time lucky for charm for Pearson?
No.
Nah.
You're trying to go back to create history. You're not doing it.
The thing is that you talk about, obviously, people know the inside out, get back to getting rid of Deadwood. I guarantee back in charge, he was, then he would get rid of all the people. Get your head buffed in that middle, So,
Ross, you're cutting out again, Ross. The audio, mate. We're struggling to hear you. I'm gonna drop you out for just a sec, Ross, and I'll bring you back in because I want to get some up on screen. So we spoke earlier about well, you mentioned it, Tom, about Rudkin. I want to bring up this on screen. So this is from the Athletic, Rob Tanner. It basically just goes in about how obviously Rudkin and Rodgers were very close, and I think that their offices were next door to each other. Do you think Rudkin was maybe one of the reasons why Rodgers stayed for so long? I mean, Rudkin's the director of football. He's the guy making the main footballing decisions, isn't he, at the club? Do you think if they were close, that is why he stayed for so long? And I think we can mostly agree he stayed far too long, Rodgers. I'll go with you, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've said for a long time that John Rudkin is now dead wood. He's been here that long. He's got wood, rot. He should have gone. Rudkin should have gone when Rodgers went. They stayed. Both of them have been in this football club too long. At the beginning of the season, when things weren't going right, and that 6-2 defeat to Tottenham, especially after losing 5-2 at Brighton, what Reader was at both of those, that should have been the wake-up call to Top and to everyone in the board that this wasn't working, and that we've got players on big wages sitting on the bench. Rodgers then should have gone. No, I'm not having this. Oh well, but then we went on to win 6 out of 7 before Christmas. The writing was on the wall at the beginning of the season for me, for both of them, that they made massive mistakes on the transfer signing to this football club, and both of them should have gone out the door. And there does seem to be too much pally between Rudkin and Rodgers, that Top believed what everything is saying. I think that the interesting thing coming out from Leicester, and Matt Piper said it, and it felt like Rodgers could walk into that boardroom and say anything he wanted to say, and it would, if there was a problem, them going, "What's going on, Brendan?" He could spout a load of absolute rubbish. The board would believe him, and he would stay. That's about how it felt. And I think the only reason he went was the pressure from the fans had finally grown too much for Top. He had to listen to what the fans were saying. But I truly believe that if John Rudkin wasn't in the position he was in, Roger would have gone way, way before he did.
Yeah, I mean, Reedy, would you agree with that? You know, obviously, Rudkin, I think, you know, when things were going well, it kind of went under the radar, Rudkin. But there's been issues there for a long time. I mean, this guy, didn't he start off as like a loans manager or something, like really not at the very bottom of the club, but he wasn't. He didn't have. Yeah.
So John Rudkin was the basically the head of the academy for many, many years. That was his position. He basically started in the academy doing something, worked his way up to basically head of the academy, and then eventually he got moved up to the football director of football position. That was his route into the football club.
So really, obviously, Rudkin and Whelan are chairing this review into the failings of the club this year. I mean, Tom mentioned it earlier. You think they need a mirror held up to them, don't you?
I'm not too clued up on all that sort of situation, but again, the amount of times I hear from Union FS and whatnot, shouting his name, saying Rudkin out and whatnot, there's obviously a reason why we've gone down and down and down, because again, finishing 5th, 8th, and then straight to relegation, there's so much happened, not just Rodgers, but there's so much happened this season that's made us get relegated, because, like I say, the Fofana issue, that's probably down to a bit of Rudkin as well, taking forever to get that done. Schmeichel going, obviously he knew what was happening. It looks like it anyway. I'm not going to say for sure, but it seems like something happened there. But there's just so many issues that's gone on this season that's honestly got to this point now. It's just too late. So it's probably time for him to move on. Will he move on? I can't see it happening because I don't think we've got the balls to do it. But it is what it is at the moment, and like I say, it's like Tom says with the wages and whatnot. And when a lot of them are off the books and whatnot, hopefully we can bring some new and upcoming players that hopefully can do the job to get us back up into the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, what you can see at the bottom of the screen there, Tom, Rudkin rebuild. It's something else that is mentioned in the same article by Rob Tanner. It's expected to be, a Rudkin-led recruitment strategy this summer to replace the 7 out-of-contract players and obviously them that will leave again. I mean, do you trust him? Do you trust us to make the right signings to replace these players to bring us back up? Because at the minute, mate, I'm really not. And we've already heard this season that a couple of the previous recruitment team that brought us the players like Maddison and Ricardo Pereira, they've left. They left under Rodgers because they were, in Rob Tanner's words, neglected really by Rodgers. So do you trust us to bring in the right players this summer?
Well, for me, you've got to go back and you've got to rebuild your scouting department. Obviously we had a very good scouting department with Steve Walsh at the helm at the time. We found some gems of players in Kante, Mahrez, Knockhart, players that no one had really heard about, and we brought in some decent young talent. Sadly, that's the route we've got to go down. You've got to find some decent young talent and give them a chance. Have a bit of experience in the squad. Do I trust Rudkin? No. I don't want him anywhere near the forefront of rebuilding this squad. This is make or break. And sadly, we've got to be realistic. This isn't just about us getting back to the Premier League. This is about building a team that is capable of staying in the Championship and progressing. This isn't a 5 minutes fix. I think Matt Pipe hit it on the head. We've seen teams drop down again after getting relegated for the Premiership. Look at Sunderland, look at Forest, look at Leeds, look at Derby, look at Portsmouth. All these big clubs, we'll be fine, we'll bounce back. They don't bounce back if they don't get it right and they start dropping down the football leagues. And sadly, we've got to get it right. Look at Ipswich, dropped down into League One for many years, only just come back to the Championship. I fear that if we don't get this right in this summer, then we could be in massive trouble next season. This summer's recruitment has got to be absolutely spot on. Yeah, you're going to make some mistakes. You're always going to make some mistakes with players. You never know how they're going to settle into the Premiership. Or like Dak has taken a long time to settle and has still not seen the best of him. This season for me, whoever we sign has got to be the right calibre. They've also got to have the mindset, because I feel at the moment that brand new training ground, there's too much luxury there.
Yeah.
Too much is done for them. When we're talking about, like yesterday, they were saying that players getting their plates taken away from them and Rodgers get rid of that. Are we serious that their players can't even take their plates and put it in the sink part to be washed up and scrape their own plate down? That tells me the values are gone. And Reader mentioned it earlier. We lost the biggest voice in that dressing room in the summer, Kasper Schmeichel. As you could see, what was going on. And Obviously, him and Rodgers have fallen out about the thing. We can all say that now. We all knew there was something there. And truly believe that him and Rodgers did not seem to eye to eye with what was going on at the football club.
Who's that? Sorry, Rodgers and who? Sorry,
Schmeichel.
Yeah.
Truly believe those two had a ding dong at some point, and they both just agreed. Well, it's best you move on. You're too big for this football club. I'm sure Rodgers probably would have said something along the lines of that. But there has to be a mentality change. For me, I'd give the women the training ground to the women. They can have the training ground so that they're in the Premier League, and the lads should go back to Beaver Drive and get back to a humble beginning and start from fresh. But we know that's not going to happen. But there's got to be a mentality change. It isn't just about the signings. It's about there's got to be leaders in that dressing room to rebuild what we had. The fearless foxes, the underdogs, the ones who weren't scared to get involved and get stuck into the games. It's gone missing, and it completely gone missing from last season.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, the last thing I want to talk about, because obviously we've got loads of time now between now and and next season to talk about a lot of things. One thing I want to talk about is I don't want to go in too much on certain players because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to single out players, but I want to mention the tweet, and you all know what I'm on about, you two. And I'm not focusing just on that. I'm focusing more on the complacency. Does that sum it up, Reedy? That Maddison tweet where he kind of had a pop at when he had a pop at Rob Tanner again, saying, we'll be all right. You're speaking rubbish if we play like this. Does it just sum up the complacency that there's been at the club this season, Reedy?
To be honest, I'll be totally honest with you. When I saw it, I was more proud and I don't know what the word is, but I was happy to see that from my players. I don't know why. I just felt like it was something that was a bit more passion and fight, saying, I do think we will stay up if we keep playing the way we were. Yes, it wasn't the greatest, but I'm glad that some players like that came out and said it. Again, I might be the one in the wrong to say that, but I prefer to have my players say that sort of thing than just say, we're shit, we're not going to win, we're not going to do it. What's one in trying? So that's just my take on it anyway.
Well, Tom, I would agree with Reedy if we were actually playing like we were going to stay in the Premier League. It wasn't like Rob Tanner. It wasn't like a Paul Merson on Sky Sports. Who's chatting rubbish, genuine rubbish, saying whatever he says. Rob Tanner was right. We were not playing well enough to stay in the Premier League. What are your thoughts on it? Do you agree with Reedy, or are you more on the mindset that, no, I think Maddison was wrong to say that?
Well, he looks a tit now, don't he, for saying that, because he's made a mass mate. I think at the time I first saw, I was like, you've taken the whole quote from Rob Tanner out of sorts. When I read the first article, Rob Tanner was talking about a whole season, not about one game. Madders came out after one game and said it. He wasn't talking about a season. Madders was talking about the Southampton performance. I've not been funny. Southampton performance wasn't that great. We can't sit here and say we were. We lost twice to them. That's 6 points. I said it last night. That's 6 points that would have kept us in the Premier League. We lost to the bottom team in the league twice. That tweet at the time after we'd just lost and fans were crying for Rodgers to go, it felt like it was a rally cry from one player. You didn't see anyone else come and tweet it. It was one player once again that, look at me, players. I always say it to him. He's the one that, look at me when I get the ball. I want to be in the limelight all the time. And it just felt it's the wrong time to get into a spat with a press, a journalist. I understand there's passion to try and say, no, we'll be fine. And, but at the time when you've just lost to the team who were bottom of the league, even if we'd beaten them, we would have stayed up. That 3 points, we could have stayed in the Premiership. I know you say looking back now, if and buts, but I just think at the time, don't get yourself into a spat on Twitter. And that's one thing with social media that the players have got to understand. And most of them are trained as, don't get into spats with people online. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the club. Matters just, for me, got it wrong timing to come out after a defeat. If we'd won the game, by all means, and Tanner had put that article out saying, you know what, we're still in trouble here, but this is my views, then by all means, he could come out and go, but we play like that and win games, who cares? We're going to stay up. But to come out after we just lost to the bottom of the team 1-0, another poor performance, I just think there's time and a place for players to come out and show a fighting spirit is what Reedy's talking about. There's also time to keep quiet and just let the press have their say, because they're only doing their job as well.
Yeah, and Jono, mate, your thoughts on that? Obviously, we just mentioned there about the Maddison tweet. I mean, do you think he was right to say what he did and to have a pop at Tanner? And
I think it was more based on emotion more than actually the situation of what's happened. Like,
but it hasn't been deleted. If it was an emotion, you know, maybe he's just sticking to his guns. But you'd think it would have been deleted afterwards, especially with the amount of stick it got, because it did get a lot of stick.
It did get a lot of stick, but you know, Maddison is the one, as Tom said, he likes to be in the limelight. You know, like especially with the COVID party, with you know all that sort of things. He likes to be the center of attention in good and bad ways. Like you know, he likes to be a center of attention on the pitch when he does. You know, he's a fantastic player. No one can deny that, and you know that's where he gets his good highlights from. But then he also makes silly judgments of errors. That's, you know, he's not. That's where he can be more mature, and he maybe just at the spirit of the moment thought, you know what, I'm going to put this tweet out, but then he just didn't take it. I don't know. But I think it was more of a spirit of the moment thing because angry about the performance. He's like, you know what, I don't care what people say. I think we're going to stay up, and I think it was, and then just didn't delete it.
Yeah, well, to finish the show, I only want a yes or no answer to this because I'm sure Phil and Jamie and obviously everyone on the channel will be talking about this in the days to come. Yes or no, is Dean Smith going to be in charge of Leicester next season? Jono, I'll start with you. Yes or no? No other words, just yes or no.
No.
Okay, Reedy?
Yes.
Tom?
No.
I'm also going no. Not that, yeah, I don't think he will be, to be fair. But everyone get the comments and let us know what you think. Simon, he says no. Saul says yes. Gray says no. Sean says yes. It looks pretty split at the minute. And no. We're getting a lot of no's now. but yeah, I mean, look, it's been great having everyone on and talking about it. It's a sad weekend, a sad day for Leicester City. But lads, we'll be back. Whether it's next year, 2 years, 3 years, 12 years, we will be back in the Premier League. And final words from each of you, Tom, you know, just final words on the show today, just to how you're feeling.
I'm going to sit in the garden, I'm going to have a few beers, I'm going to light the barbecue, spend time with the family and try and not to think anything about this disaster. I think me and Phil are going live around lunchtime to have a bit of a chat and talk about the whole season and what way it went wrong. But look, for me, it's done and dusted now. I think you could say it's been coming for a long time. So it's not coming as a shell shock that, you know, we could have seen this coming like 2 or 3 games ago. We've seen this coming for months, so it's not a shock to me. I said before, I've seen relegation from the Premier League. Sadly, you boys are probably a bit young to see relegations from the Premier League, so it doesn't hurt as much as beforehand. But look, it hurts. We'll recover and we go again, but it's going to be time to reflect now and get ready for another slog. And hey, we could be playing on a Friday night at the beginning of the season, and 4 days before we'll be in Singapore.
That hopefully will be checked. They can't keep that date. They can't keep that date. If they do, it's a really bad business decision if they keep that fixture.
Yeah, Jono, final words, mate.
Rebuild. I think the board and the background staff need to sit down and have a proper hard look at themselves because they've been complacent. They think they thought we were against relegate. Like, oh, Leicester City can't get relegated. No chance. Like, this is Leicester. We're a big club. We've won the FA Cup. They were naive. They thought just buying a few backup players was enough. It wasn't. They've made bad financial decisions, which in the end couldn't buy the players to back up the players that we lost. So they need to have a hard look about how to get the fans' trust back, because with this staff, we don't trust them at all. We don't know what they're going to do next. They need to apologise, because they could have easily could have been avoided, and rebuild. Get rid of some players. We need to get rid of some players, and then rebuild. But no matter what's happened, I'm still massively proud of what we have achieved. You can't take away what we've done. Like, I saw a statistic that we are the top 6 club that have won the most trophies since the year 2000. We've got more than Spurs, who've got more than any of the clubs, so major trophies. So yeah. I'm massively proud. I wear the shirt of pride, and we go again.
Yeah, Reedy, final words, mate, before we end.
I'll have a nice 2 months off. Thank God for that. It's took a while to get to that moment. I'm normally really excited for the new season, but I'm glad I've got a few months off now to just chill out and just forget about football for a few months. But again, I'll say this: if it's any season, we've got to come back up. We've got to bounce back straight away, otherwise we'll be stuck down there for a while. So we've got to make sure everything's perfect, and that's it. You just got to make sure we try and bounce back and try and challenge at least next season.
Yeah.
I saw one comment, which I do agree with, from Dave. The new kit is stunning. I love the new kit. I just want to say that.
Well,
it looks championship. It looks championship quality, man.
We are the championship.
Coincidentally, it's quite similar to our 13-14 championship winning season. But anyway, that's it from us now. Like Phil says here, obviously his fan zone show tonight is the usual time, 7:30. But him and what's funny?
Look at Phil's other comment.
But yeah, as Phil said, obviously his usual shows at 7:30, but he is going to be live, I think, with Tom at 12:30 as well. So a load more comments and a load more debates to be had then. But thanks for everyone clicking in. Again, it's a sad day, but we'll end on that. But we'll do our best to bring you as much content as possible and try and lift the mood just a little bit. So cheers all, thank you.
Thanks for watching Leicester Fan TV. Thanks to our sponsors, ADT Taxis, Everards, Pukka Pies, Pink Car Leasing, Leicester Riders, Hollogram, The Fox's Arms, Peter's Pizzeria, Hope Against Cancer, and Newby Co estate agents. Make sure to follow us on all of our social channels at Leicester Fan TV. Visit our website, leicesterfantv.com.